Welcome to the Deconstructing Data podcast. I'm Jessie Lezak, CMO at BDEX, along with co-host David Finkelstein, BDEX's co-founder and CEO. Today's guest is Matt Hertig, CEO and co-founder of ChannelMix and recovering CIO, which I look forward to hearing about. So quick intro, Matt has led ChannelMix as they've evolved from a small analytics consultancy to a 6-time Inc. 5000 honoree. So we're among another Inc. 5000 winner here. One of the biggest drivers of ChannelMix's growth is their end-to-end analytics platform designed for marketers. With more than a decade in the field, Matt is a nationally recognized thought leader in marketing analytics. So we're really lucky to have him here.
So well, thanks. Yeah, it's great to be here. I appreciate the intro and happy to hang out with you guys today. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah, awesome. Matt, again, thanks for joining us here today. We're happy to have you. And so I want to jump in first and give you a chance to tell your story. We'd love to have our listeners hear your story and also a little more about ChannelMix too.
Yeah, no, great. And thanks again, David, for allowing me to be here today. So, you know, ChannelMix we've been in this space for 15 years now, which is pretty hard to believe. We actually just did a full-on rebrand to the name ChannelMix earlier this year. So what did we do for the first 14 and a half years? Well, we were a company called Alight Analytics, and we really did grow up as my co-founder and I, Michelle, we basically started it out as an agency consultancy, helping primarily brands really get to some understanding of what's working and what's not working when it comes to marketing and the value of the spend and just helping them make better decisions. And so we really grew up as a kind of a boutique consultancy. And about 5 years ago, we decided to flip the business model really into a product company. And we'd started formulating what is now ChannelMix really early on. We were doing everything by hand, you know, downloading stuff, putting in Excel spreadsheets and putting it into PowerPoint and praying to God nobody asked you any questions. Kind of a process that is still evident, unfortunately, today in the marketing industry. But we knew there was a better way, and essentially what we did is really poured the learnings, the frontline learnings that we had into ChannelMix, which is today is when we say it's end-to-end, it can go out and get data from anywhere, unify it, aggregate it, puts it in a warehouse, makes it analysis ready. We have a full suite of reporting templates in Tableau and Power BI. But more importantly, it's not just about getting data and reporting. It's actionable insights and knowing what to do and where to go. So we have a whole machine learning AI environment now that will predict into the future. And so it's pretty cool from where we started out, which was everything by hand in Windows Vista in Excel. Those were dark times to what ChannelMix can do today.
That's awesome. I appreciate that and that background. That's super helpful. And actually, I didn't realize you guys were doing some stuff in machine learning as well. And I don't know if you heard previous topics we had about ML in marketing and you know the tools that are coming out, and we're seeing more and more tools coming out helping marketers and advertisers improve their performance using ML. So it's cool to see that you're doing that as well.
Yeah, it's definitely it was really the last to come in the stack because you can't really do ML well if you don't have a handle on the data and the ecosystem and the processes to unify it. But today, yeah, we can spin up a media mix model in less than 24 hours and predict into the future of, hey, based on what you've done in the past, this is where you should change your spend, and this is the result you should anticipate getting, whether that be revenue, leads, customers, et cetera.
Yeah, that's the exact point we discussed in the last podcast was about the importance of the data first, right? You need to have the data, you need to understand the data, you need to know that it's quality and clean and where it came from.
That's right.
So that's great. That's awesome. Well, that wasn't really one of our topics, but it was just that I saw that I heard you say that was interesting because it tied really well into our last podcast. But you know, we did want to talk about third-party cookies. I know that's kind of the first thing that we wanted to talk about. And you know, what's your take on it? I mean, how marketers have been adapting, how they should adapt going forward. making sure that their analytics platforms are sort of future ready, not being able to use those third-party cookies anymore. And what does it really mean? So let's hear your take.
Well, I got a lot of opinions about this topic, so let me jump into them. So first of all, I get asked this question a lot. What's going to happen with third-party cookies going away? And that just got pushed another year, primarily by Google.
Yeah,
but it's coming.
Okay.
And if you kind of back up first and think about, well, what were third-party cookies ever designed to do in the first place? And really, what their intent is to help media buyers and help marketers understand performance, and really to optimize on the fly. The problem with third-party cookies has been that we use that same mechanism to talk about the value of marketing. And so I want to be very clear. When I talk about third-party cookies, there's two lanes to talk about. One is optimization and one is understanding the value. Third-party cookies should never be used when you're talking about the value of marketing, what marketing is delivering into the organization in the form of leads or revenue or things that are meaningful on the P&L. Third-party cookies are really important in the optimization of media, view-throughs, click-throughs, obviously related to some sort of third-party cookie tracking. So third-party cookie tracking in the way that it's designed today will change. It has to change. Part of the delay in the industry, frankly, is getting the server-side process to work. And so for those of you who don't really know what that means, is third-party cookie is just a pixel that gets placed on your website. And when somebody takes an action, it sends a signal, I call it over the top, back through the browser, back to the ad server. And that process is obviously going to go away. And so retargeting as we know it today will change. It has to change because I can't follow people around. And it's already been somewhat, I guess, brought under control with iOS, the latest iOS release. Firefox has always blocked them. Safari blocks them out of the gate. And so third-party cookies by nature have been diminishing in value, frankly, for quite some time.
Yeah.
And so I think we just have to recognize that they are going to go away. And that leaves us with two questions. One, how do I continue to optimize my media the right way? Which is, again, where third-party cookies are valuable. And two, for those of you who are listening are saying, well, Matt, I show up and I tell people that I got, 100 Facebook conversions off my Facebook ad. And that's how I show the value of marketing. I would tell you, you need to stop doing that because that's not what they were ever designed to do. And we'll talk about third-party cookies and the tracking strategy really in our next topic as it relates to first-party cookies in particular. But, the reality of third-party cookies going away, frankly, I think it's healthy for the industry. I think it's good for the industry as a whole. The media industry will adapt. And we're not going away. We're not going to not be able to optimize media on the fly. We're still going to have audience segments. We're still going to have the ability to optimize media. It's just going to change in how we do it. My biggest education point that I've been pushing for as I get to speak all over is third-party cookies should never have been part of the value equation when you show up to say, I spent X and I generated Y for the business. And that practice needs to stop. And this change will actually, force that behavior to change.
It's kind of a correctional change in that manner.
I think so. I think look, I'm not casting blame on agencies or marketers for the reasons in which we do that. The data ecosystem of marketing is very challenging. It's the worst ecosystem probably. As you said earlier, I'm a recovering CIO, which really means that, I've been through the gamut on the technology side. And I think from a data ecosystem perspective, I call it the most fractured, right? Because Facebook doesn't want to talk to Google doesn't want to talk to Snapchat. Like there's these walled gardens that exist. And so being able to break down those walled gardens has always been a challenge. And when you're unable to do it succinctly in a timely fashion, and you're getting asked, well, what did we get from that last campaign? And what did we get from the value of that spend? We run to the data that we can get to easily, which is a third-party cookie conversion. And my point is, we as an industry, every time we do that, it kind of hurts our industry a little bit because we lose credibility. I use this example all the time. So Facebook generated 100 leads and Google Ads generated 100 leads and LinkedIn generated 100 leads. Cool, but I only generated 50 leads.
And which of those actually brought in revenue?
Right. So when we show up and say, well, marketing generated 300 leads that are worth, say $100, cool. That's not real. And so what we have to do is we have to make sure that third-party cookies, first of all, we understand their intent, and their intent was always to optimize. The second thing is, okay, and when they go away, how are we going to optimize? And by going away, that's part of the reason why Google delayed another year, because they want to make sure Google Analytics 4 is ready. They're going to make sure Chrome is ready, which owns over 70% of the marketplace in the browser space. So once those things kind of get in order, obviously Google, as an example, is a media company. That's where they make all their money. They want to evolve it correctly. In the meantime, we as marketers, we should be evolving our analytics strategy to look and lean into first-party cookie, first-party data, and ultimately cookieless data. That's the future where we got to get to.
It's funny how every platform you work with will take credit for the lead.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, and again, so Facebook is motivated to sell more ad space. Google is motivated to sell more ad space.
Yeah.
LinkedIn motivated to sell more ad space. And so, of course, you're going to put a third-party cookie pixel, you're going to put a third-party cookie, conversion on your website. And when somebody takes that conversion action, if you as a potential prospect have experienced that in any form, if you've seen the ad or you clicked on the ad, that conversion is going to show up back in those 3 platforms. And it just deluges the reality of really what marketing is bringing to the table.
All great points. I think you covered everything we were going to get into on this one. Anything more you'd want to add on how third-party cookies are actually holding marketers back?
Yeah, I think what I would say is we got to stop using third-party cookies as a crutch to show value, and we should expect more, right? The last thing I'm an analogy guy, so I always speak in analogies. I always think about as marketing is an investment, and so if you think about your 401k or any sort of investment, you have these portfolios that you invest in. So paid search is a portfolio, paid social, email, etc., display. So you wouldn't expect in your investment portfolio to have every one of those things taking credit for an investment return. So we need to evolve our thinking. And what I've been telling folks, really use this time right now to change that thinking, because third-party cookies are going away and you're not going to have access to it anyway. And you shouldn't be talking about the value of marketing in the context through the context of third-party cookies.
Yeah, we talk a lot on this podcast about making sure that people don't sort of take that initial action of the sigh for relief that I don't have to worry about third-party cookies going away now for another year. So it kind of goes away and it's, not something they have to worry about anymore. And we keep telling them, like, you have to make the changes now. You have to change your business model. You have to make sure that you understand your processes, because, again, like you said, you're relying on a crutch that's going to go away anyway. So you want to just fall on your face when the crutch goes away.
That's right. And it's the bell-shaped adoption curve. You can really use the analogy of what's happening with Google Analytics and Universal being deprecated and Google Analytics 4.
Mm-hmm.
So Google Analytics Universal stops tracking, July of next year. And we've been preaching that gospel for over a year. And so unfortunately, we're just getting calls now like, hey, there's this thing called Google Analytics 4. I'm like, oh man, oh God, yeah, there is.
Yeah.
I'm guilty.
So, so you just want to stay out in front of it. Use this time to be prepared and really get your analytics strategy in motion.
And because of the changes with third-party cookies, Google Analytics 4 looks completely different.
100% different.
And you have to understand how you're going to change your, how you use analytics going forward and adapt to it.
Yeah, I think it's a completely different data model. It's more of a hit-based model, more of akin to what Adobe has done formerly on Mature. But yeah, it's a different UI. It's a different structure. Still kind of buggy. That's still, but it'll work itself out. But what hasn't changed about Google Analytics, which I think leads into our next topic, is first party, right? It's a first party cookie. It is a single source of conversion truth that you should be leaning into right now. And and frankly, you should always have been really leaning into a web analytics platform. Again, Google Analytics has about 80% of the market. So sometimes it's higher depending on the stat, but virtually everybody is using Google Analytics in some fashion. And it's by nature, it's a first party cookie. And so it's not allowed to create that duplication of conversion that we were just talking about that's prevalent with third party cookies. First party cookie is the first step to what I call recovery. Like you just have to embrace that web analytics, in this case, Google Analytics is going to give you a single source of conversion truth. And so you have to lean into that. And by doing your conversion now to GA4 and moving your thought process beyond third-party cookies to a first-party cookie conversion strategy, defining what actually each channel is delivering, is that first step.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So I put that new topic down there. So moving into that piece, how should marketers be adapting their marketing data and new tracking strategies for more future-ready analytics? David, since we have you here in the big screen, do you want to kick us off on any of your thoughts with this topic?
Yeah, I mean, look, we talk a lot about going forward, what marketing data means, because in the past, everybody's really relied on third-party data.
Yep.
And that has been sort of, similar to what you said about using third-party cookies for marketing. It's been a mistake, because there's so much data out there that is invalid. It's just bad. It's not, it hasn't been qualified. It hasn't been tested. You don't know where it came from.
Right.
It's been completely falsified. It's generated. I could go on and on. It's generated by bots and click farms and whatever. So there's so much bad data out there that I think that the going forward, the strategy going forward for companies, they're going to be forced to, concentrate on how do I leverage my first party data more.
That's right.
And that's a good thing. Because it's going to be a lot more effective. I think it's a challenge for a lot of companies. They don't understand. They don't, they're not collecting first party data. They've been so reliant on third party data. They don't even collect their own data.
Nope.
A lot of companies don't even know who their customers are, right? So it comes down to, how do you collect that data? Providing things like a value exchange so that the customer is open and willing to give you that data. Trust. We talk a lot about, trust when it comes to, getting people to share data. And then going forward, that's all, well and good. That's collecting data and getting the trust to get it shared with you. Then you have to learn how to manage that data, how to use that data, how to optimize with it, and so on. So I think that there's going to be a lot of nuances and a lot of things for people to learn going forward. But I think it's a great opportunity for companies like yours and mine, to build tools to help companies do these things so that they can improve. And I think what they'll learn over time is that, wow, this is much more effective.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. 100%. I think, so when you think about first party data and you think about the tracking strategies to support it, I think that the thing that I want people to think about is stop thinking bottom up. And here's what I mean by that is typically what we do is we go out and we kind of piece together all this media stuff and we try to formulate it and we try to understand which channel is working, which channel is delivering, and we try to roll that to a campaign. And then we try to ultimately get up to the top of the mountain. And sometimes we just pray to God that it looks good because we don't really know because there's so much noise. And so what you need to do as part of your first party strategy, and again, this is what marketers should be thinking about and doing right now with the help of, our company, obviously your company too, David, but how do I flip that over, right? So at the very top, there's really three core segments in any marketing analytics strategy in my world. And we'll definitely talk about how our worlds come together here in a minute, because I think it's really awesome. But in my world, it's how much did I spend? How much awareness did I create? That's all of your media data, right? And I don't care about third-party cookies. I don't care about any of that. What I care about is what actually did I invest in the portfolio? And then the next step, which is your first-party cookie, how much of that portfolio actually took the action that I want. That's Google Analytics, for example. So I have media data, web analytics data, and then I have my first party, whether that's transaction data, data warehouse, a CDP, CRM, whatever that is. That's my first party data. That's the end set, right? So somebody actually converted. Google Analytics has helped me understand which channel delivered that conversion. But I also want to pass that information into my CRM system so that I know where they came from. And I know now that it's Matt and he lives in Lawrence and he's going to the Chiefs game tonight. You won't know that. But you're going to get to know more about me because I, as a prospect or returning customer, I voluntarily gave you that information. So I have first party data at the end, first party cookie and third party cookie. So we ignore third party cookies when it comes to this understanding how and where to spend and how to deliver. The data DNA though that's required is this tracking strategy we're talking about. So I need to have a tracking strategy that when people enter my website, I have the metrics. Using Google Analytics as an example, I have a UTM strategy that contains the elements that I need to know to attribute that success on my website, whether it's lead gen, e-commerce transaction, whatever. But I also need another tracking strategy between the website and my CRM. So when somebody converts, I'm passing, we have a product, and I'm not trying to sell our product, but we have a product called Conversion ID that basically bundles everything up and just sends it over into an ID into CRM. So that if I wanted to, I could go backwards. So oh, cool. I know it's Matt. Matt came from paid search as a last click, but I also know that Matt took all these different experiences while he was on the site. That helps me go back upstream to optimize my media channels. And so rather than doing it bottom up, as I was describing, what I have is I have the endpoint, which is CRM, first party data, and then I move backwards. But we have to establish that this is the goal. The goal is to generate customers. The goal is to generate revenue. The goal is the supporting cast of that is to generate leads. The supporting cast of that is get more website conversions.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's great.
Anything else you'd want to add on this topic, David?
No, I think we hit it all. The only other thing I'd say is I just would second what you said, that the customer data is your most valuable asset.
Yeah.
Right. And that's where everything else channels from. So
it's where everything that we're trying to get to, right, is resides around a customer. So in my world, I don't deal with individual customers like you do in your world, David. What I'm looking at is aggregate performance across the whole portfolio, right? So how much did I spend and what was the outcome? And when I create that unification across that pipeline, we use a pipeline process at ChannelMix. It sets me up for those things that we were talking about in the very beginning, which is using AI and machine learning to say, cool, this is what I delivered into the business, this amount of revenue, this amount of lead base. This is the value of those leads. How do I go get more? And so that's how it all begins to fit together.
Exactly. Well, that leads into tech stacks.
Yeah.
This is a topic we bring up every week, and we just like to ask our guests, what are some of the favorite tools that help empower you and your team?
Yeah, I think, in ChannelMix, we're big users of HubSpot, big users of Asana. Not me, because I'm a terrible project manager. But that's just not a space I excel in, but I have 100% appreciate it. So
I'm really curious, since you mentioned HubSpot, do you use their tracking pixel? Because I like their tracking pixel, but you were talking about what you guys do. It kind of sounded like you might have your own tracking pixel.
Yeah. So the interesting thing about HubSpot, I'll pick on HubSpot as an example, or any CRM. So the great thing about that tracking pixel is it helps me understand if I come back and I'm on the site, it's tracking those interactions. So that helps me from a customer segmentation perspective, customer insights, customer behavior. What it doesn't help me understand is how much did I spend to get Matt there?
Mm-hmm.
There's none of that. So any of the cost components or any of the true ROI components that I need to make, again, if marketing is an investment and I'm looking at this portfolio, that's why ChannelMix exists, is to fill that gap. But you're right. We do love HubSpot. We use it. We launched it, I don't know, about a year and a half ago. It's been great. It's been great for us. So HubSpot, Asana, Slack, obviously, those are all near and dear to our heart. Those are probably the three biggest ones. If you would ask my customer support team on the tech stack, they would say anything that doesn't have a nice API, we could care less about. And there's a lot of those tools out there.
To integrate.
Yeah.
For easy data flow. Absolutely. I'm a big fan of those myself.
Yeah. And obviously the Google Suite. I think what Google has done really, really well in the tech stack space is made their APIs so usable and flexible and consumable. I think that's why, again, not just because we're an analytics shop, but I think they continue to excel in that space. And just making their data accessible. I still talk to media companies and they charge you for an API. I'm like, guys, this isn't the 90s. You need to, that's not a thing.
Well, since you brought up, attribution data and the HubSpot pixel, I can't help but ask, of the, so this kind of leads into dark social. So I don't know if you heard that term being thrown around, but of the data we get, the attribution data that we get from those pixels, and they tell us, this lead came from paid search or organic or direct or offline. Sometimes if you drill into it more, and what I found, and this is something I found from Chris Walker, who's a thought leader on LinkedIn, but collecting qualitative data and asking the customers on your form fills, how did you hear about us?
Yeah.
And then becoming, a little more informed about all those different buckets and finding, in fact, they may not self-attribute organic or paid to how they heard about you. So I'm just curious about your thoughts on all that, and if that's something you guys do.
It's not. I think it's a fantastic question. Again, I speak in analogies, and oftentimes they're threes because my mind's not smart enough to go beyond that. But so if you think about analytics in the context of who, how, and why, right? The why component is where qualitative data can make a lot of sense, because you can't always see that in the quant side. In the how world of where I live, right? How is marketing driving your business? How do I make more money? How do I spend more efficiently? The who is, David, that's going to be obviously more in your realm, because I don't get in that realm. I don't identify the individual. So the why, I think, is it's a little bit dangerous because people don't act, and they don't say and act the same things all the time, right? So you have to take that qualitative component into.
There's that whole psychology behind it.
Yeah. It's like, oh, I know I did that, but I just went into there and that place really sucks, so I'm going to write a bad review. And I found it, through this channel. I think that's helpful, and I think that's definitely brand management and definitely brand image and things you need to particularly pay close attention to. How it relates to, again, my world of how is marketing driving business. I think it's a qualitative lens to look through as to why some things may be happening. But at the end of the day, I got to know the quant. I got to know for every dollar I'm spending, what's it given to the organization.
All right.
Good so stuff. I don't know if that answered your question, but
it does. I mean, it's easier. It's more quantifiable. There's no doubt about that. Qualitative data is really messy and hard to analyze.
Oh, super hard to structure too, right? So it's super hard to. It's super hard to get it in a digestible way without just sending out a survey. Okay, well, how many times are you going to get somebody to fill out a survey or respond to an email alert? Yeah, you want those things, but I think those things provide context as to what is happening. So,
yep. Well, should we get into that fourth topic, David?
Certainly. So data partnerships. So, I mean, obviously, a little bit about what we do and how we help marketers understand who their advertising to, who they're marketing to, trying to reach the right people. Again, helping them provide actionable insights. We do that coincidentally both with third-party data, but also with first-party data, helping companies build audiences off of their first-party data.
Yeah.
And so, love to get your thoughts on, your experiences with companies and their data partnerships and the values that they bring, maybe even some data partnerships and companies that you've worked with, whatever it is, but ultimately get sort of your feel on the value add there with
yeah. Well, I think so. I was thinking about this question, and there's really kind of two lanes that data partnerships live when I think about this. So first of all, obviously we have data partnerships with a lot of the sources that we work with, and how we integrate them, and how they come into the tech stack within ChannelMix, and how we integrate. So data partnerships for us come in the form of dashboard visualizations, Power BI, and Tableau, and again, the media partners that are pumping data into ChannelMix.
Mm-hmm.
The other side of that, though, is I think that as an industry, and David, you can tell me if you agree with this or not, but I think we've solved this kind of who and what problem, or I would say the who and the how problem, almost in silos. Like, I'm going to go off and I'm going to build an audience segment, and I'm going to figure out how to target to them, and that may be your agency, or may be done internally out of a CDP, and so I have this great audience segmentation plan, and I take and I activate that against media, and then I get them to do something, and then I come over here and I kind of talk about, well, how did we do? And there's a breakdown between having that be circular rather than, I would call it siloed, because they have to play together. If we're going to be effective at the end of the day, I think maximizing marketing ROI and reaching the target audience that we want to reach, it needs to be circular. And for us, I think the opportunity, and we don't have this today, just being transparent, we've talked about it a lot, is how do we then fulfill that loop from how to who, or who to how? How does it become circular? Because that's really the holy grail. Isn't just being able to look into, using machine learning and AI and say where to spend your money. Like, that's part of the equation. The other part of the equation, though, is who I spend it on. And so today, I think that the industry has always done these things somewhat in silos. And I think there's a huge opportunity in this next evolution of marketing with tech stacks like yours and mine to be able to integrate that into more of a circular motion.
Agree 100%. In fact, it's something we talk about a lot. We call it a feedback loop internally. And we talk about the importance of having that feedback loop, especially when you're talking about using tech that in marketing advertising that is going to leverage machine learning.
Yep.
Because, and when we talk to our customers, we say, we explain this to them, like, we're going to build this audience for you, and it's based on your first party data. But the more information we get back from you from this audience, who, right, actually goes to your website, who actually engages with you, who actually becomes a customer, and feed that back into the model.
Right.
We can continuously optimize this model so that we're getting better and better and better at targeting and reaching the right people.
Yep.
So I agree 100%. There's not, and we've been talking about doing this literally for years. And, especially the bigger the customer we work with, the more they're like, oh, well, we're not going to give you that information. We're like, we want your conversion data. And they're like, well, we're not going to give you that. And we're like, well, if you give us, the information on who converted, then we can continue to optimize this for you and make it work even better. And so I think there's been a lot of pushback, and the bigger the company, the less they want to share back with you, even though we're making it very clear how that data is going to be used and why and how it's going to improve. But I think that going forward, more and more tools like the ones we've created, like the ones you're creating, is going to more or less require that. Right? Because it's like, you can get this performance out of it if you don't provide the feedback, but guess what? we can increase the performance by X.
That's right.
If you provide this feedback back into the loop and allow the system to actually learn and do better and better each time.
Yeah, and I think that the key to doing it, which I don't know that we were necessarily equipped to do it effectively historically, but the key to doing it all goes back to the context of, because my former CIO life is creeping in here, and so the alarms start going off about, well, if I was working as a CIO, I don't want to give you my customer data, or I don't want to give you my raw revenue data or my raw transaction data. Yeah. So what you have to be able to do is do it in context but while supporting privacy. It really is, of course, if I shortcut it, right? And so it's so for us, how we've tried to solve that problem is I'm going to give you an anonymous ID that is tied to an individual. But if you want to share that conversion data, for example, back to you, just show me all customer records that have that conversion ID, because you're going to have the segment, you're going to have the channel, and you're going to have how many times they came to the website and all of those things. I never gave up a name. And you're doing it in the context of not trying to be creepy. You're trying to do it in the context of trying to be more effective and better stewards of the marketing dollar, which is the ultimate goal.
Better stewards of your audience.
And better stewards of your audience. So you're not peppering them with, all these things that they're not interested in. Like if I have an audience segment that I have tried to reach 10 times in a row and they've never responded once with a conversion, well, I don't know. I got an idea. Let's not market to them anymore.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah.
Great point. Well, we have a couple minutes maybe for one or two questions, unless there's anything else you guys want to add. There was that article in there, I guess, before we moved on. Anything anyone wanted to say about the ad exchanger column? It was 3 ways partnerships can drive better marketing analytics and ROI by Susan Toulouse. She's SVP of Global Head of Partnerships at Analytics Partners. So I know I put that in there. Curious if either of you had a chance to glance at
it. Yeah, I glanced at it. I think that we're in an age. A couple of things that I would say. Number one, brands need to take control of their data. In general, I think, and I'm very passionate about helping agencies. We work with a lot of agencies. That's nothing against agencies, but brands need to own their data. They need to control it. It needs to be holistic. And they need to take charge of it. Not all brands, and Dave, you mentioned this earlier, not all brands have taken even charge of their customer data. So that's paramount. Number one, you got to get control of your customer data, but you also got to get control of your marketing spend data. And so the who and the how, you've got to control both of those worlds if you want to be effective in marketing, plain and simple. And your agency is a partner in that. But ultimately, the brand is responsible for that. And I think the point of the article is that this is a complex ecosystem. This is a complex thing. Finding the right partner to come alongside and helping you achieve these things is going to be better, more sustainable, more cost-effective, frankly, long-term. And so I can't remember the exact merits of the point in the article, but essentially, to me, that's kind of the essence of you can't be afraid of partnering in this space.
Absolutely. So that was
the only thing I'd add to that, and I don't even know, be honest with you, I don't know if it was in the article because I didn't get a chance to read it. I literally came from one appointment to the next. But from what you said, Matt, I think that there's also a point in putting pressure on ad platforms and agencies to be transparent.
100%.
I think that the problem we have today with ad fraud exists only because of the lack of transparency, and advertisers don't know where their money is being spent.
They don't. And I mean, look, that's come out in the press, I think, in the past 12, 18 months. But I think the reality, if you're an agency and you don't want to be transparent, then you should be fired. Honestly, if you're still showing up with PDFs and PowerPoints as your results test with a bunch of media activity, then that's not enough. And brand marketer, you have to stop accepting it. You have to start taking control, and you have to start taking the initiative. And I know that maybe that sounds, I don't know, maybe it's harsh on a Thursday, But that's just the honest truth. I mean, we can move this industry forward. Unfortunately, I still have same conversations when I'm speaking at conferences. I still have some of the same conversations that I did 15 years ago, and we can be better than that. We just have to take the initiative to begin to take control, and brands have to lead the way.
Agree.
All good stuff. Yeah. Well, I don't know. I think the 4 topics pretty much brought us to the end. So I guess in closing, are you on Spotify? Anyone who's listening, if you prefer an audio format of this, you can find the Deconstructing Data podcast on Spotify. And soon we're going to be on Apple Podcasts and more. So also, if you find the Deconstructing Data podcast interesting, you might like checking out OmniIQ. So visit BDEX.com and try OmniIQ if you don't mind. It's free of charge. There's a data clean room there. Just simply upload a CSV of your first-party customer data and see complementary analytics.
Awesome.
It does all that and more if you check it out. Please be sure to share any feedback too. We're still molding this show, so any sort of feedback we highly value. So thank you to our listeners, and thank you so much to you, Matt, for being here with us.
Well, Jesse and David, it was great hanging out with you today, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely.
Likewise. Thank you, Matt.
All right, guys.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Take care.